Hey everyone, welcome back to the Counteract Podcast. What's up? My name is Allison Lind. I'm the host of the Thursday segment, and it's been a minute since I've been on the pod, guys. I'm so sorry about that. You may have noticed I'm in a new setup, and the audio sounds kind of crappy, for which I apologize. Let me actually see if I can fix can't be changed while recording. Okay, but we have echo cancellation on, so we're going to see how it works. I'm trying a new setup situation, as you can see, but I'm in the corner of my apartment, and that means I'm in a little echo chamber. I'm going to have to figure out how to fix that moving forward, but for today, hopefully the audio isn't too dreadful for you guys. I just wanted to pop in here and say, hi, I missed you, and I'm so happy to be back. And maybe I'll talk about it a bit more at another point, but honestly, it has been a hard season for me. Really, the past year has been pretty rough, and I feel like that has affected my ability to record the podcast because I have been kind of experiencing like spiritual up and downs, like really just attacks from the enemy, attacks on my intelligence, my wisdom, my ability to speak. I have felt like what good could I possibly offer to you guys through the podcast? I want to make sure I'm bringing value to your life when you listen to this. I don't want it to be just mindless yapping, but truthfully, that is what I'm best at. So learning how to balance that and find subjects that are interesting, that are fruitful and edifying, and that really just point back to Jesus. I don't want to, be on here yapping and complaining about the state of the world, but I do want to be able to bring the best content possible to you guys that is glorifying to the Lord, that gives us hope and redemption, and that's where we're at. Today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Snow White movie. Not specifically about the movie, because I think everyone is covering that, and to be honest, I haven't watched it. I don't think I will watch it until it's free to me. I just can't find a real justification for why I should go spend my money on it. It has been absolutely flopping at the box office. I'm pretty sure. I mean, people didn't even know it was coming out when it was coming out. So, despite their marketing efforts, I think it's doing really poorly. And so I just wanted to analyze a bit about why that is. And hopefully I can bring some stories in to you. Actually, okay, we're literally doing this in real time. I have not prepped this episode, but let's look up Snow White 2025 box office reviews. Okay, let's see here. Where can we find this? Is Snow White 2025 a flop? That's really sad. This is from Business Insider. They say Disney's Snow White is a flop at the box office, but it's not at all because of the anti-woke backlash. Analysts say audiences simply didn't connect with the film, which got low marks from critics. The Mouse House can still make money from the movie, however. Let's just click on this because it mentions, are they going to make me pay? That's going to be an L for me. I'm not paying, sorry. Okay, yes, Forbes magazine, Snow White is bombing at the box office. The article was, whatever. Snow White did not impress critics with its 44% score on Rotten Tomatoes, but even with the higher 74% audience score, the movie is in fact currently bombing at the box office, at least according to these initial figures. Snow White brought in $87 million in its opening weekend globally, but just $43 million domestically. Out of context, that doesn't mean much, but if you compare it to other films that they have released this year, The Lion King saw $191 million. Oh, this isn't this year. I'm sorry, guys. This is just their overall live action movies that they brought in recently. So Lion King took the top at $191 million. Beauty and the Beast took it at $174 million. Alice in Wonderland, $116 million. Jungle Book, $103 million. Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Maleficent, Cinderella, Snow White and the Huntsman, and Dumbo all took the cake above Snow White in box office revenue. The only one that got less in the past however many years these movies have came out was Mufasa the Lion King, which came out recently, and I'm curious to know why that was a flop. I did watch that one, and maybe I can talk about it a little bit, because the point of this episode is not specifically about Snow White, and it's not about wokeifying our movies per se. Rather, I want to talk to us about uh, why do stories matter? Why does it matter if we make a movie? I think people have had this complaint about Hollywood for the past 10 years at least. And same with Broadway, that there's nothing original coming out anymore. If you notice, everything I just listed on this list was the remake of the original, the live action remake. So these aren't even the first time that Disney has told this story. I think that's really interesting. Just a quick rundown for those of you who haven't seen Snow White. They cast, let me just do this real quick. They cast, I'm forgetting her name, Rachel Ziegler. I should have known that. She has a beautiful voice, don't get me wrong, but she has made it a little hard to like her sometimes, just judging by the way she talks about her characters, the way she acts, if I'm being honest. I don't love her voice, love her as a singer. As an actress, I've seen better, and we'll leave it at that. So they cast Rachel Ziegler, who openly has identified herself as a person of color, which is completely fine. She has done really well in roles that she's fit for. But the one qualm that people had with Snow White is that she's literally named based on the fairness of her skin. And as I've heard these like critiques, I've been a little hesitant to like say anything and jump on the bandwagon of like, she's not white, like, because I don't want it to seem like we only need white stories. But I will say it's interesting. I want to know what their message that they were trying to portray was with this movie. They really just changed her character in its entirety. And I have always been a fan of if you have a story that's worth telling about a person, tell that story. You don't have to go and flip it around. I think we see this trend in the West of taking historically Western stories, historically white stories, and trying to gender bend them or change the race or just do something different than what's already been done. And this is all at the expense of these amazing stories that actually come from people's culture that we could be telling in the West. For example, Pirates of the Caribbean. They announced that they're going to come out with a new movie. Johnny Depp, amidst all of his issues, will not be the star as Jack Sparrow anymore, but they will be centering an Irish woman whose name was like Bonnie something. Let me look it up. New Pirates. Yeah, here we go. Oh, it's also coming out in 2025. Boopity boop boop boop. Oh, it's gonna have Margot Robbie in it. That's exciting. Sorry guys, I don't know if you like this format of me just Googling things in the moment. Personally, this is maybe how I'm gonna be able to get my episodes out, because life is so busy. I struggle to prepare and I feel like I have to overly prepare. Okay, maybe Johnny Depp. Wait, he is reprising his role. So was this a lie from Gugu? Did Gugu lie to us? Well, anyways, maybe it got shot down because it was genuinely a bad idea. They wanted to center the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie around an Irish woman named Bonnie something. And I should know this because at one point in time, I was going to write a sea shanty musical about a pirate queen, and it was totally going to be a redheaded Irish woman because I'm a redhead and I'm biased towards myself. But they were not going to cast this character as a redheaded Irish woman. They were going to try to make her black. And that bothered me, and I think a lot of people, because why would you take an Irish story and try to force a black woman into it? Why not just tell, if you want your main character to be a person of color, why not just tell the story of an actual Caribbean pirate queen? There were totally women like that out there. I'm pretty sure there were pirate queens from every culture you could have told one about. Asia, India, Ireland, definitely Spain. I'm sure there was a Caribbean or African pirate queen who existed in history. Why don't you tell her story? Or make up a new story that centers her culture instead of trying to force a person of color's culture into a white role. It just confuses me. And I think that was the biggest issue people had with Snow White as well, was trying to make a statement, perhaps, by completely changing the character. And a lot of people had issues with that. Not only that, though, they also changed her story. Obviously, she couldn't be named Snow White because of her skin tone anymore. So instead, Snow White's parents, question mark, were rulers of this communist kingdom. And so she was fair in the sense of communism being fair, if I remember this correctly. Maybe I need to find this post that talked about it. Yeah, so she's the fairest of them all because she's fair in her spreading of resources, apparently, or she will be someday, as her parents were. I could be getting this wrong. Definitely fact check me on this, but I do know that that is at least part of the background of her character to justify her name. And lastly, I also noticed that Snow White is known to be this like dainty soprano voice. That's part of her beauty. That's part of her charm. That's like what they wanted with the music. If you do research on the history of Disney, those original movies were actually to sell songs. Most original movie musicals, or musicals in general, were to sell the music that was in the movie. Then they attached a story to it. As time grew, the story began to become more important. So I'm willing to bet that Snow White sounded like a dainty young soprano for a reason. They do not portray her as such. They take Rachel Ziegler's voice, they give her that mezzo-soprano belt, which is beautiful. Like I've said, I love her voice. She is genuinely a talented singer. But once again, just more evidence of them changing her character rather than giving her a princess that she fits into. Like, why don't they? It's just, it feels like it's not kind to the actor. The audience obviously doesn't want it. It's just a mess. You're just changing stories for the sake of a political statement. And I think we've seen over the past 10 years at least that we're tired of the political statements. People have tried it. I mean, Broadway has completely gone downhill. There's very little new original shows that are made for the sake of art. Everything in art is political now. And I think about that a lot because I went to art school. I still consider myself an artist, even though I don't be making art right now. But I love art, and there's a place for art in society because I believe there's a place for art in God's kingdom. He is the creator of all things. We create because we were created once. We create because we've encountered a creator. He is the source of all beauty. I mean, that's why we find, like, beauty to some extent is an objective standard. You can't really argue. You can argue about, like, maybe what attaches itself to beauty, but you can't really argue why we feel certain ways when we see beauty and we experience beauty. There's a reason we have such an emotional connection to music. There's a reason, you see a pretty woman on the street for a guy, or you see an attractive man for a girl. And something, you get those butterflies in your tummy. There is such thing as inherent beauty in all of creation. That's why we're speechless when we see the mountains and we're reminded of just how big and grand this world is. And that's not even considering the inner mechanisms of how, like, life needs to happen. The molecular, at the molecular level, the inner workings of every plant life, every animal life, and every human life. There is an inherent beauty in all of creation, and that's what art comes from. It's literally from the heavens. And I think that makes sense why there perhaps is such a, what's the word, like, stronghold on the arts industry for moving away from the church, for moving away from, honestly, in my opinion, true beauty, for moving away from any kind of biblical ideas, for idolizing depression and anxiety and sadness. And, it's okay to tell sad stories. Like, I believe in telling real stories, but with no redemption at the end. What are you doing? What are you putting out there? I made this argument even with Nefarious when it came out, a year ago, 2 years ago, claiming to be a Christian movie, but not putting a redemptive story out. What's the point? What are we trying to convey to our audience? I'm jumping around a bit here, but this is really the point that I want to tag onto, and that we're seeing this with Snow White in the box office, is that I think people are genuinely so tired of art with a political agenda, because art is a reflection of life and the way we live it. It's the telling of real stories that come from real people. It's the same idea as when people say that culture is downstream. Wait, what's that quote? Guys, I'm genuinely butchering this. I'm not good at memory recall unless it's like scripture, sometimes maybe. Politics is downstream of culture. Yeah, we'll just say that. Politics is downstream of policy. Policy is downstream of culture. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, that was awkward. It's true though. Same idea. Art comes from culture, the way we live life. It informs the way we see the world. And then perhaps the way we vote. That doesn't mean that it has to come from an inherent narrative. We talked about this thing in art school called abstraction of the body. It actually was a thing that is pretty common in dance and certain experimental choreographers, trying, but also to make a social statement, trying to abstract the dancer's body from the story that they're telling. But what you find in a lot of these pieces is that actually, with no story at all, you can do this dance, you can even sing a song, you can do something with zero plot, zero story, zero context. And what you'll find is the human brain automatically applies a story to what they're seeing based on things like race, gender, height, attire. There's so many things like we inherently already form opinions about the things that we see in the stories that we hear. You don't have to force it down our throats. That's not good art. And I think about this a lot too. Movies are a commodity now. Like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, going to the movies was a big deal. I remember asking my dad the first time he went to the movies. It was a huge deal. They went to see the first Star Wars, and I think it was like a half a day's drive to the next town over to see the movie. And it's to this day one of his core memories. It was a bonding activity for him and his parents, and it was special to him. And movies used to be that way, but now they've just become commodities. You can get on any one of the 10, 15 streaming sites that exist out there. You can scroll through like you're at the grocery store trying to pick which brand of laundry detergent you need. You can just scroll for hours and decide what movie you want to watch. The stakes are so low, and it's truly a commodity. And that blows my mind because so much money and energy and heart goes into some of these products, and it's just a commodity. And so we as a culture are treating art as a commodity rather than something that has like an inherent spiritual, social value. But we're also seeing a deterrence away from that. We're seeing Broadway not financially doing well. We're seeing shows shut down. We're seeing the original pieces stay, like Hamilton. You don't have to. Okay, I will actually say this because I think Lin-Manuel Miranda, most of the original Hamilton cast make their views very clear about politics when they are on Instagram, in interviews, in their personal life. But the show itself is written I don't know if you guys heard that, but that's my pipes. The show itself is written without much bias. I listen to that show and I feel so patriotic, and I know that that cast probably doesn't agree with my views, but the show invokes patriotism in me because it's genuinely just good art, and it's sticking around. It's becoming a classic. So I do think maybe nature is healing. Maybe we're moving away from movies as a commodity. Maybe we're moving back towards tradition and beauty. You know, art, music, singing, dancing, it all started as forms of worship. And there's even belief that heaven itself was the birthplace of music, that music was created to exist in the heavens as a worship to the one true God of the universe, and then was gifted to us down on earth. So technically, art wasn't even created here on earth the same way that we create bricks for buildings and we learn how to, I don't know, cook and make recipes. Music is inherently divine and inherently spiritual. And my prayer is that as we kind of see potentially the early signs of the next great awakening, that part of that will be driven by the artists who look at movies like Snow White and they say, this isn't good art, this isn't uplifting, this doesn't have any value or purpose in my life or society, but let's create something that does give value and purpose, that is worship, that is a reflection of the creator himself. I really started to think about this because for those that don't know me, grew up doing musical theater, went to theater school, and when I moved to the city, I realized the industry is just so far gone that real art is rarely made. It's true, or at least glorified. It's all about fitting a box, telling a certain narrative. It really is like you say the right words, you say the right woke ideology, and you get uplifted and you get praised through that, rather than the genuineness and the originality of your work, something that actually comes from the heart. I mean, it's crazy. Like, yeah, it's a tangent, but I had to step back from the theater world and just reevaluate, like, why did I do theater? Why did I want to become an actress? And I think before I knew Christ, it absolutely was for self-glorification. And it was the worship of man to fit their box, to please them. My entire life was for the casting team on a show, or for the professors at my top choice theater program in college. And that shaped my whole identity. It shaped my political beliefs. It shaped the way I carry myself. It shaped my priorities. And in the process of all of that, I forgot so much, and maybe I passed by so much of the giftings. Wow. Not trying to tell you guys my sob story, but I do be getting a little teary at this. I left on the back burner so many of the beautiful things that God did to, like, make me the person I am today. I'm an athlete. I love my family. I don't just enjoy acting and singing. I also love drawing and doing work with my hands. I love film. I love directing. I love all of these things. And that's because that is just comes from who I am. It comes from the way I see the world, rather than trying to force myself to be an artist the way that Hollywood wants it or Broadway wants it, which is you have to fit a certain demographic and you have to say all the right words and you have to tell one specific story that's going to basically line their pockets. That is not true art. That's not where it comes from. Where it comes from is the beauty of God's creation, the fullness of it. It's really falling back on the Stella Adler method of acting, which Stella Adler basically said, don't be an actor, just be a person. Go live your life. If you have to take years off of acting in order to experience real life, Go do that. It'll make you a better artist. That's why some of the best people that we see, like Adam Driver, was in the military first. That informed him as a performer. And that's because art should be a reflection of life the way we live it, and ultimately an outpouring from the creator into our act of creation. And now, after I've taken a step back from theater, I start to see art as worship. Like, it is such a gift, honestly, that we get to create. I mean, even that I get to be sitting here recording this podcast, like, what do my words mean to you guys, except that they're like a mere, like, crayon drawing of like a little kid that, gives it to their parents. Like, that's how I feel when I make podcasts, when I make art, when I do anything. It's like, by the world standards, whatever, maybe it has value, but like handing it to God, it's literally just like the worst crayon drawing I could ever have made in preschool. And God is like, oh, that's nice. But like, we all know it's ugly, But that's what the Lord delights in, because it gives him glory and it glorifies like his creation and it honors his beauty and his goodness. And yeah, I don't know. I just like, maybe that's the point of this episode, is that I just wish that we as a culture could return back to true beauty, to seeing God as the source of all beauty. That anything we create, first of all, anyone can be an artist. Whatever work you do, whatever creating that you do, it's art because it's a reflection of the creator and his goodness and his labor. And yeah, I just wonder what it would be like to see culture turn back to that. To stop treating art as a commodity. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. When did art become industry? It used to be the glue of society. I mean, the first dances that we know of were around the campfire when hunters would tell the stories of their hunts to the women and children. Talk about like communal foundations, It truly was the glue of society. And now instead, it's the thing that rips us apart. And it's a commodity. And it exploits people. It tells spiritually dangerous stories sometimes. And for what? Like, literally, what's the point? Why did we need another Snow White? Really? Besides money and personal glory. I don't know. Like I said, guys, I did not plan this episode, so if all of this made zero sense, I apologize, but I just want to leave you guys with that. Maybe let's consider, like, what makes art good? Where does beauty come from? What is the source of it? And why does it matter what stories we tell? I mean, Snow White is not based on like the way that they changed. I mean, like communism, I know there's people who think communism is good nowadays, but genuinely, what are you trying to say with that? Like, what story are you trying to tell? I don't know. I think it's important for us to start considering why do we create art and why do we consume it, if not for the glory of God? I would even argue that it's impossible to make art that is neutral. It either serves the Lord or it doesn't. And that's why we see such a stronghold on the music industry and the film industry and the theater industry. We see, like, I remember being told when I was younger, like, you're going to go to New York, you're going to start doing theater, and you're going to walk away from your faith. And the rate at which I saw other Christians do that was like so disturbing. How many people walked away because they tried to fit into this industry that was, just all about self-glory and political narratives and straying from the real beauty and the real nuance of good art. So, yeah, I don't know, guys. Let me know your thoughts about Snow White if you watched it. Let me know if it's worth checking out. Maybe there's other deeper points I could have hit on if I had seen it. But I hope that this episode just gives you guys food for thought. More than anything, I just really yeah, I really see a future for the world of art. And we've seen it with The Chosen. We've seen it with, The House of David just came out. With Jesus Revolution, the movie. I mean, there's good things coming out. There's new musicians popping up. I mean, I feel like every other ad on my Instagram feed is a Christian t-shirt brand, and I'm like, I have too many t-shirts. I can't live in just t-shirts, but they keep making cool t-shirts and I feel pressured to buy them. And it's like, okay, people are like using their creativity for the kingdom. And I do think that there is like genuinely hope for the arts world and the industry as a whole. And I think there's even been prophecies that like the next great awakening will happen with artists at one of the like forefronts, because it really does just shape so much of our culture. And I think it's really interesting. And yep, I don't know. I hope you guys find hope in Snow White bombing at the box office. I think maybe 5 years ago that wouldn't have happened, but the red wave is still happening. And even more so, the Lord is moving on the earth. Politics aside, like he is so zealous for this generation, and he is so zealous for just our culture to turn back from him. Like I can just tell. And, we're seeing that with like Gen Z is genuinely hungry for the word. They're open to spirituality and to Jesus, and they're not hostile towards it anymore. And I think we were a generation that was raised on AI and fake images and trying to fit this perfect image online. And we had the lip fillers and the Kylie Jenner like eyebrow and the contour, and we were a generation raised on artificial appearances. And now we're kind of growing up and we're starving for something real and raw and truly beautiful and just natural, and that reflects the beauty of God's creation. And so I just want to leave you guys with that hope that the stories that we tell matter, and that the Lord is reclaiming those industries just like he's reclaiming every other industry in America today, and especially for Gen Z. So yeah, if you're an artist out there, like get to work, because we are hungry for something real and good, truly. Like society is starving for good art again. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave this off here. I hope some of this maybe made sense. I'm so happy to be back with you guys. I'm going to be getting into some good stuff in the future, specifically around things that happened at the UN, because I spent 2 weeks at the UN for the Commission on the Status of Women. That was very interesting, guys. Not to give despair, but there are some scary things happening at the UN. So we'll be coming back to you guys next week, potentially the next 2 weeks, to talk about some of those things that are happening. So I hope you guys stay tuned. I'm so happy to be back. As always, leave reviews, give us a good rating on Spotify, on YouTube, reach out on Instagram. You can find my personal Instagram or the Counteract Instagram in the description below. I always am open to hearing topics that you want me to talk about, or just feedback. Like, guys, I really need help, because I'm just like, I feel like I'm feeling around in the dark with my episodes sometimes. But I genuinely, oh my gosh, I just almost knocked over my whole table. I want to know what you guys want to see and what would provide the most value and benefit in your lives. So, yeah, I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening to this episode. Go watch and make some good art this week. Okay, I'm gonna leave it off here. Love you guys. See you next time. Bye.